In this tutorial, we will learn all about clustering of web servers and replication of session instances with the Tomcat 9 web server. We will cover the following topics. In what is clustering, we will understand the concept of clustering and how it improves application performance and reliability by distributing the workload across multiple servers. We will look at how session IDs are used in clustering, in which we will learn how session IDs play a crucial role in handling session replication and maintaining state across a cluster of servers. We will attempt to understand how sessions get replicated in a cluster, and we will get insights into the process of session replication and how it ensures consistency across the clustered environment. We will also look at a more detailed explanation in our course documentation and the official Tomcat 9 How to Cluster document. And now we are going over to our official course documentation, and we'll scroll down to the section on clustering and session replication in Tomcat 9. And let's look at what is clustering. Clustering is a technique used in Tomcat to enhance the availability and scalability of web applications. It involves setting up multiple Tomcat nodes that work together as a cluster to distribute the load and ensure fault tolerance. And we have the definition and purpose of clustering in Tomcat. So what it entails is configuration of multiple Tomcat instances that allows them to work together seamlessly. The three main purposes of clustering are load balancing. That means the load is evenly balanced between all the Tomcat node servers. High availability, which means if one node fails, all the other nodes can pick up, and that means our web server front end and back end is always up and running. And then session replication, which means it doesn't matter what your session ID is, we have multiple nodes in the back end that can take care of your session. And we look at how session IDs are used in clustering, and essentially it's because they are used to help identify and manage user sessions with the unique session ID. And then with each different access, we know the user and we can access all his or her relevant data. And we have the explanation of how session IDs are used in clustering. We go to the correct node. When the session is created, the session data is stored on one of the nodes. The session ID is used to locate and retrieve this data for subsequent requests. If the request is directed to a different node, the session ID ensures that the correct session data is retrieved. We look at how sessions get replicated in a cluster. So basically, it ensures that the session data is synchronized across all nodes in the cluster. First, when the session is created, a copy of the session data is stored on the node. Then a replication. When there are changes to the session data, the session is replicated to other data in the cluster. That ensures that all the nodes have the most up-to-date session data. And then the third main point is in case of a failure on a single node, the user's request can be directed to another node. Since session data is replicated, the user can continue their session seamlessly on a different node. Now we can also look at the official Tomcat documentation. This is the clustering session how-to. And now we are going to Eclipse. And we've set up two Tomcat 9 servers through Eclipse, one at localhost A and one at localhost B. And the important thing to note here is that we set up these port numbers here. If we go to the other one, we see that we offset port numbers for A and B. So this one runs on a different port. And we can also look at how we have set up the server. This is the Tomcat A server configuration. And follow along with the official documentation. We enable simple TCP cluster. And we also do that in the Tomcat B configuration. Here we can see the ports. Here we see we've enabled the cluster from the cluster how-to document. And then when we go to our charity registration, we've updated our index.jsp to run the activity session. And if we go to our web.xml, we enable clustering through this definition. So let's start the charity registration on Tomcat A and Tomcat B. First Tomcat A, charity registration. And it goes to the session information. And we see that it's on port 8080 and page activity. Now if we look into our log, we also see that the cluster membership is engaged. We see all sorts of clustering output. So now let's run charity registration in Tomcat B. And here we see Tomcat B is on 8081, and we have new session and page activity session. So going back to our output here, we see all the clusters are engaged. So that kind of means that the clusters are set up correctly. Now, obviously, if we go back to our official Tomcat documentation, if we really want to engage the cluster, you're going to have to put in something called a load balancer. And the load balancer will have a single entry point, and then behind the scenes decide to which Tomcat server it goes to. And as we see here, there's a lot more detailed configuration that needs to be done to enable the session replication with channel send options, with managers. And we see this very complex cluster architecture they described, and how they described Tomcat A and Tomcat B starts up and picks up each other's sessions. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go into all that detail, since that will probably need a whole new course. So I will leave that for self-study. This is our last tutorial about sessions in the Jakarta JEE8, the Apache Tomcat 9 web server. So we will do a quick review of what all of our session-related tutorials covered so far. Sessions are used to identify the client on the server and maintain state during interactions with the web application. There are major security concerns related to sessions as described by the OWASP.org website, and they also present us with ways on how to implement best practices to protect against session-related vulnerabilities. We've successfully applied session management techniques in our charity registration web application by adding a login page and using an in-memory database to track user sessions. Lastly, we've explored the concept of server clustering in relation to the Tomcat 9 web server, which we are using and we understood how it enhances scalability and reliability for our web applications. And that concludes this tutorial. I will see you in the next one.